So today we're talking about, can the mind heal the body? And this is a question I get all the time. Can the mind heal the body? Do crystals work? Does, thinking about and belief in healing make it actually occur? I get this asked a lot. So this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And we're actually going to look at an ability of the mind to heal the body that science cannot explain. And just to say right off the bat, big disclaimer, I and we are not against medical science in any way. Medical science is extremely important. I am not a doctor. This doesn't constitute medical advice. Always listen to your doctor. Always stay healthy. And, always listen to medical science. Very important, okay? But that being said, we are going to look at the ability of the mind to heal the body and see what that says about reality and, our day-to-day life and everything that entails. So it's going to be a really good one. Again, it's a question I get asked a lot, so it's important to talk about. I want to make a big announcement though. We have officially launched a hidden Discord server called The Citadel. And this is available to everyone who supports on Patreon and anyone who supports on YouTube on the second tier membership level. So I highly recommend checking that out. We just started it and I have a lot of plans for it. It is going to be awesome. We are also having a secret live stream right after this that you can be a part of if you support on Patreon. All right, let's get into it. And today we are discussing the placebo effect. And probably some of you knew this was coming, but here's the thing I really want you to understand. The placebo effect is extremely important. It's usually dismissed by science as, oh, it's fake, it doesn't matter, or some kind of, it just shows when we fail. The placebo effect is extremely important because it shows that the mind has the power to heal the body, and science cannot explain how this is possible. Now, if you're not familiar with the placebo effect, I'll read you a quick definition, but I mean, most people are. And basically, it's a remarkable phenomenon in which a placebo, which is a fake treatment, an inactive substance like sugar, distilled water, or saline solution, can sometimes improve a patient's condition simply because the person has the expectation that it will be helpful. Expectation plays a potent role in the placebo effect. The more a person believes they are going to benefit from a treatment, the more likely it is that they will experience a benefit. So essentially what this means is that if you give someone a pill that's a fake pill, it's just a sugar pill, but you don't tell them it's a fake pill. If you say, oh, this pill, it's going to alleviate your pain or do whatever, the more the person believes that that pill is real and is going to heal them, the greater chance that they will experience a benefit. And so what scientific materialists do is they set up tests to see if a new drug or treatment is effective, and they'll compare it to placebo to see, oh, does this really work? Or is it just placebo? Now, here's the thing. Again, placebo gets a bad rap. It's something that's seemingly dismissed or they act like it's a failure of some kind. No, it shows it's an extremely powerful proof that the mind has the power to heal itself. It is not something to dismiss. It's something that needs to be explored and understood, and science can't explain it. And that's another reason why it's also dismissed and not really explored that much, is because of this inability to explain it within the materialist paradigm. And that is what we are going to be talking about today, because this goes along with all the different questions I ask that get asked to me, such as, can the mind heal the body? Do crystals really work? Do the more you believe something, can you expect some kind of healing benefit from it? So we're going to talk about that in the context of the placebo effect. And again, this is not something to dismiss. This is an extremely important evidence for the power of the mind. And of course, this fits in with the paradigm of Hyperianism perfectly, whereas in the paradigm of scientific materialism, it is not, it is inexplicable. So let's I want to bring up this article here called Your Brain on Placebos. So the placebo effect is so well known. By the way, there's another effect called the nocebo effect, which is sort of the opposite, where you can have negative results if you believe that something is going to have negative results affect you. So placebo is believing positive results and getting some kind of positive effect, and nocebos believing in negative results and getting some kind of negative effect. But anyway, I digress. The placebo effect is so well known that it needs little introduction. But in many ways, the placebo effect has become so familiar that it's easy to forget how strange it really is. That's what I'm talking about here. How strange and amazing it really is. Because I know some people that go, oh, he's just talking about the placebo effect. No, don't just dismiss this as something inconsequential, like so many scientific materialists will do, or some kind of failure. It is an amazing result. So, in many ways, the placebo effect has become so familiar that it's easy to forget how strange it really is. It's bizarre that pain relief and healing can take place without actual treatment. And that powerful positive physiological effects can occur without any real physiological intervention. Research has shown that a vast array of different conditions benefit from placebos. This includes acne, Crohn's disease, epilepsy, ulcers, multiple sclerosis, rheumatism, and Parkinson's disease. And a recent study also found that placebos had a highly significant effect on erectile dysfunction. Comparison of placebos to antidepressants suggests that the placebo effect can play an important role in the treatment of depression. A 2008 study found no significant difference between leading antidepressants and placebos. In a 2018 study, antidepressants fared slightly better, but their effects was still only found to be mostly modest compared with placebos. Now, I want to stress the importance that I am not saying that you should stop taking your antidepressants or you should stop taking your medication. No, don't do that. That's not what I'm saying, all right? Continue to take what you're taking, follow all the advice of your doctors, follow all the medical advice that you're giving, all right? Medical science is extremely important, and all the advancements with medical science are critical, all right? I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Follow the doctor, okay? And I just really want to emphasize this because I feel like some people could think, oh, I'm just going to give up my medicine and use the mind. No, don't do that. It's very important to take your medication and follow the advice of your doctor, all right? Just want to get that out there. However, we are exploring the potential of the mind. And in the future, we may be able to increase this potential. And we can get a better understanding of how the mind affects reality, how the mind affects your body, etc. Okay? So just, please, I care about you. I care about your health. Don't, stop taking your medication. Always follow the advice of your doctor. All right. But anyway, now all of this isn't simply a matter of suggestion or delusion. Real and measurable physiological changes occur. So again, this is not just some kind of delusion that the patients are having. They don't just think that something is happening. There are real and measurable physiological changes that occur. Again, I really want to emphasize this. It's not just a delusion where the patient just thinks that they feel better. Real physical changes occur. Again, think about this is mind over matter. And it's extremely difficult to try and explain this in materialist terms. You have to do a lot of backbending and contortion to try and come up with something that works. But perfectly, when we're going to talk about this, how it perfectly fits in with Hyperianism. So real physiological changes occur. Studies have found that when taken as painkillers, placebos decrease neurological activity related to pain and make use of many of the same neurotransmitters and neural pathways as opioids. Similarly, researchers have found that when taken by people with Parkinson's disease, placebos can simulate the release of dopamine, which reduces can stimulate, not simulate. Placebos can stimulate the release of dopamine, which reduces the symptoms of the condition. Now, I also want to emphasize that the placebo effect, it doesn't usually, it's not like it cures the condition, but it can alleviate the symptoms associated with the condition. All right, important difference to understand there. It's not going to like, you can't regrow a limb or make a tumor go away or something like that. It can alleviate symptoms associated, such as maybe like pain or maybe nausea or something like this. But this shows the potential of, and why it's so important to understand Hyperianism and ontological mathematics. Because when we get rid of this bullshit materialist paradigm and realize how powerful the mind is, we can use that understanding of the mind and pair it with technology and with medical advancements to propel our ability to heal ourselves. Eventually, right? Eventually, we may be able to regrow limbs or eliminate tumors or something like that through the marrying of understanding the power of the mind and coupling that with medical advancements and technology, etc. So I also want to emphasize here, I think this is a good time to talk about, like, when people ask me about, do crystals heal you? So here's the thing. Can crystals heal you? No/yes. It's kind of like saying, can a fake sugar pill heal you? Well, yes and no. It depends. It depends on, it's not the pill that heals you, and it's not the crystal that heals you. It's your mind. And so just like the pill doesn't have any inherent internal properties. The sugar pill, the fake pill, doesn't have any internal inherent properties to heal you. Same with the crystal. The crystal doesn't have some kind of structure. It's not emanating some healing wave or something like that. It works like a placebo, in that if you have a belief that it's going to do something, your belief in it can activate the placebo effect, and you will experience those positive placebo effects. Placebo also varies between different people. Some people, placebo works for them, others it doesn't. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But I want to emphasize this. But a lot of people ask me about crystals. What crystals are, they don't have an inherent property in themselves. They are a psychological tool. It can activate the placebo effect. You can also use it, we've talked about before how you can use neurolinguistic programming or anchoring. So you have a red crystal and you associate your red crystal with willpower. And every time you look at that crystal, you make that mental association of willpower. Then whenever you want to tap into your will, you can take your red crystal out and hold it or something and have that psychological link and feel your willpower increased. Now that crystal in and of itself isn't actually emanating something that increases your willpower. You've made a psychological link, and it's the power of your mind. Do you see what my point is? Is that it's always the power of your mind. It's not the crystal. It's your mind. And the crystal is just a thing in between that helps you. I used this example before. Have you ever seen those cartoons where a character is given something like, say there's this character that's super, super shy, and their friend goes, oh, look, here's a magic flower. This magic flower will take away your shyness. And then, the shy character takes the magic flower, and then they're like, wow, I'm super confident now. And then they go out and they give speeches, and they're super confident because of their magical flower. And then their friend reveals to them, hey, that flower, it's not magical at all. You just felt more confident because you believed it. That's what's going on here. That is what's occurring here when it comes to crystals and all these new age ideas. So be careful. Be careful. I'm always telling you, be careful. Don't let people strip you of your power. Don't place your power in something. It's not the crystal that's making your life better. It's your mind. All right. Always remember, you are the one with the power here. So let's continue. Researchers looking into placebos have found that some factors, such as expectancy of treatment, different personality types, and the patient-physician relationship can have some bearing on the effects. So this is also really important. Different personality types will determine the effectiveness of placebo. And the expectancy. So you have, belief that plays a role. You have the personality type that plays a role, and the patient-physician relationship. And that's really important as well, because another factor that's really important is the authority of the person, because that will reinforce your belief. If you have a doctor, a person of authority that says, this pill is going to make you feel better, and because you have that authority figure telling you, this is going to increase your belief as well, and this could have an increase in the effect. So all these different factors are at play here. And by the way, if placebo does not work for you, don't feel like it means you're a lesser mind or less intelligent, no, it does not mean that, all right? There are certain people that are less susceptible to certain things like placebo. Some people can't be hypnotized, or it's really hard to hypnotize them. Some people aren't very open to suggestion, and that's okay. That has no bearing on your intelligence level or anything like that. For example, when it comes to hypnosis, some people, their minds have just developed more of a firewall to kind of block that, whereas other people who are really open to the frequency domain can have less of that barrier. So just everyone is different. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. Everyone has different ways of interacting with reality and how their minds are set up. So I just want to emphasize that. If placebo is not something that works for you, don't feel like you're some kind of lesser mind or anything like that. That's not the case at all. Everyone's just set up a little bit differently. So we also know that placebos can activate reward pathways in the brain and increase levels of opioid and dopamine activity. That said, the underlying causes of the placebo effect are still mysterious. How it works is mysterious to especially those who subscribe to materialism. Placebos also affect activity in the higher brain regions like the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and perhaps though, nocebo and placebo effects only seem mysterious. All right, this is an important point. Perhaps though, nocebo and placebo effects only seem mysterious because we're looking at them from the wrong perspective. And by this I mean, maybe if we consider an alternative view of consciousness, the placebo and nocebo effect could begin to make more sense. And this is where we get into understanding how this works. So, the brain and the mind. In modern Western culture, the mind is usually seen as a byproduct of the brain, a kind of shadow cast by neurological processes. So that's the position of most mainstream materialist science, that the brain and the mind are the same thing, or that that the mind is just the brain, or that the mind is some kind of byproduct of the brain. And when you're looking at it from these terms, the placebo effect is very hard to explain. And we've talked about this before. I'm not going to get into it because these videos will be way too long. But just watch my other videos, such as Consciousness Could Not Have Evolved, that shows that consciousness is fallacious. Not fallacious, but saying that consciousness is a byproduct of the brain is a fallacious position. If you follow the rules of materialism, it would have been impossible for consciousness to evolve from the brain, dealing with the closed relationship of physics, and also emergentism is a non-explanation because no rational mechanism for how it could possibly work is ever given. Anyway, check that out. I have a video on why consciousness could not have evolved from a materialist perspective. In our system, it absolutely can, because everything is mind. And then I have another video called 10 ways to know that 10 ways that this is a mental reality, refuting scientific materialism, something like that. And it gives you 10 objections and how to refute them and show that this is a mental reality. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But the idea here, so in modern Western culture, the mind is just usually seen as a byproduct of the brain, a kind of shadow that's cast by neurological processes. Mental phenomena, such as thoughts and memories and feelings, are thought to be produced by brain activity. So if we have psychological problems, they are thought to be due to neurological imbalances that can be corrected by medication. But if this assumption is correct, how is it possible for mental processes to influence the body as well as the brain in such a powerful way? Indeed, the difficulties of explaining consciousness purely in terms of brain processes have grown so acute that some philosophers and scientists have adopted an alternative view, that consciousness is not a direct product of the brain, but a fundamental universal quality like mass or gravity. So this problem of consciousness is becoming so large that there are philosophers, scientists, neuroscientists that are beginning to say that materialism, that's false, it's run its course, it's an old idea, it's fallacious, it's flawed, and that instead of consciousness being a product of the brain, that it's a fundamental quality of the universe. That's the position that's beginning to gain popularity. Now, this is slightly different from our position, but it's getting there, and I'll explain more in a moment. So this is something I look at in my recent book, Spiritual Science, and its view that has been adopted by some contemporary philosophers, including David Chalmers and Thomas Nagel. Chalmers suggests that consciousness does not seem to be derivable from physical laws, and believes it could be considered a fundamental feature, irreducible to anything more basic. Nagel also suggests that the mind is not just an afterthought or an accident or an add-on, but a basic aspect of nature. So here's the idea. So David Chalmers says, it doesn't seem like consciousness can be derivable from physical laws. And that's 100% correct. It cannot be. So in Hyperianism, all reality is mind, and mathematical mind. Mathematics and mind, they're the same thing, because mathematics is in terms of mathematical frequency, and we can look at these as mental waves. So in Hyperianism, all reality is mathematical mind. Physical laws are derived from mathematical mind. Right? They are like a subset. They are derived from them. They come from them. So what materialists are trying to do is they're trying to get mind from physical laws. The reason why that doesn't work and they run into all these problems is because physical laws comes from mind. You can't go the other way around because it's incomplete. It's sort of like, I'm trying to think of a good example, and this isn't a perfect example, but it's kind of like in a video game trying to derive the person that plays the game from the game rules. The person that plays the game made the game rule. Let's say they're the programmer. They made the game rules. So the game rules comes from the person. And you can't use the game rules to make the person. As you see, you're going in the wrong direction. That's not a perfect analogy, but it's similar. Physical laws are derived from mathematical mind. You can't use physical laws to try and derive mind because you can't, you're inverted, you're backwards. Anyway, this is one reason why materialism is so fallacious. Other scientists and philosophers, such as Christoph Koch and Philip Joff, have adopted similar theories, which suggest that the mind or consciousness is a basic quality of material particles. And this is the approach known as Panpsychism, that mind is found everywhere and the fundamental physical particles have mind or consciousness. And so, for example, in panpsychism, electrons would have a subjectivity. These approaches are not yet widely accepted and would need to gather more evidence to support them. And there are some difficult issues that need to be addressed. For example, if consciousness is a fundamental quality, how does it end up in individual conscious beings such as ourselves? Or if consciousness exists in particles of matter, how does the consciousness of those particles combine or produce larger conscious entities such as human beings? So these two objections are major objections to someone who says that consciousness is ubiquitous. But guess what? It is no problem at all for Hyperianism. So let me explain. Over here you have materialism, which says everything is matter. And then over here you have Hyperianism, which is an idealism, which says that everything is mind and that matter is just an illusion of mind, like a dream world. These are the two poles, so to speak. In the center, you have what they're talking about in this article, which is panpsychism, which is sort of, there are different versions of panpsychism, but the basic idea, usually, is that mind and matter are basically the same substance or two aspects of the same substance, and that everything has consciousness, such as, electrons. And so panpsychism is sort of an in-between between Hyperianism and materialism. So it's a little frustrating because scientific materialists are finally starting to rip themselves away from materialism, but they're not going all the way to Hyperianism. They're stopping in between at panpsychism. Because panpsychism, it still leaves matter intact a little bit. Panpsychism basically says, it's very complicated, but in a nutshell, panpsychism says all matter is conscious. Hyperianism says that everything is mind and matter is an illusion of mind, like a dream. So do you see the difference? Materialism says everything is matter. Panpsychism says all matter is conscious. Hyperianism is an idealism which says everything is mind and matter is just an illusion of mind. It is a mind that has objectified itself, like a dream world. So there is a very important difference. So panpsychism has the problems of how does consciousness end up in individual conscious beings such as ourselves? Or if consciousness exists in particles of matter, how does the consciousness of those particles combine to produce larger consciousness, such as human beings? We don't have that problem. So how does consciousness end up in individual conscious beings such as ourselves? In Hyperianism, everything is mathematical. Mind is a frequency function, and matter, such as bodies, are space-time functions. Being that mind and matter are both mathematics, they can interact just fine. So mind is a frequency function that interacts with the space-time function of the body. In other words, a mind is an eternal mathematical entity. And it is able to, link, so to speak, to a body. That's putting things simplistically, but you have a frequency function interacting with a space-time function. And there's no philosophical problem here because you have math interacting with math. There's no issue. There's no Cartesian dualism. There's no problem of substance dualism at all. So the other question here is, if consciousness exists in particles of matter, how does the consciousness of those particles combine to produce larger conscious entities such as human beings? So what panpsychism kind of tries to say, there's many different versions, but it basically goes that, you say electrons are consciousness, or electrons have consciousness, and then, our bodies are made up of electrons, which have consciousness, but then how does that cluster of individual conscious electrons form our own unified conscious experience? Put less eloquently and in more of a brute way, how does many individual consciousnesses, such as electrons, form the unified subjective experience that we have? Well, it can't. That's the problem of panpsychism. Hyperianism doesn't have this problem because you aren't formed by an aggregate of conscious electrons. You are a body, which is a space-time function, where a mind, which is a frequency function, interacts with it. So in other words, a mind is an eternal entity, which is what you truly are, that links to a space-time body as an avatar to exist and explore the material world. You aren't an aggregate of conscious electrons. You are a body that a mathematical frequency function, a mind, uses to interact in the physical domain. And additionally, it's important to understand, in Hyperianism, electrons aren't conscious. Electrons are thoughts. So there is a difference between being a subjectivity and a thought. All right? So in Hyperianism, everything is mind. So an electron is a thought. It is not, like in panpsychism, a material particle that has a consciousness. Everything is mind. There is no matter in Hyperianism, everything is mind. There is no matter. Matter is an illusion. So matter, such as electrons, are thoughts. And you can imagine it like this. When you go to sleep and dream at night, your dream characters are thoughts. They're very complex thought functions. They don't have their own, subjectivity, but they are a product of your thoughts. Same thing like the material in this reality, such as electrons. They are thoughts, but not by any one mind, but all of our minds together, forming the frequency contributions of all matter. Let me just move on because that's not the main topic for today. But the reason why I'm explaining this is because basically what it has to do with the placebo effect and the mind healing the body is that, you have this very interesting effect, the placebo effect, which shows that the mind has the power to heal the body. And basically what this article is saying is that materialism does a terrible job at explaining it and understanding it. But panpsychism could explain it, but it has these problems. And my point is that Hyperianism can explain it, but has none of the problems that panpsychism does. Hyperianism is infinitely superior to panpsychism. It's a mathematical idealism, All matter is actually mind, and it is mathematical. And this shows the power of Hyperianism is that we can explain, of course that the mind would have the power to eventually heal the body once we understand it and are able to, really tease out how this works. Because it's a frequency function that interacts with a space-time function. Your mind is a frequency function that interacts with a space-time function. So of course, the frequency function, which is your mind, will be able to have control over your body. So, in a nutshell, materialism does a terrible job at explaining it. Panpsychism can, but there are some very big logical problems. Hyperianism can, and there are no logical problems with it. So, more mainstream scientists still hope that a neurological explanation of consciousness will be found that will help to throw some light on rogue phenomena like the nocebo and placebo effects. But taking the philosophical idea of consciousness as fundamental might suggest that the mind is in some way more powerful than the brain and the body, and so could influence the latter in a profound way. And it might help explain one day why placebo pills can bring about real physiological and neurological changes in many people. And that's the whole idea, is that materialism is such a failed paradigm that all they do is they hope that one day materialism will be able to explain it. Just like they hope that one day materialism will be able to explain consciousness and mind and free will and subjectivity and quantum mechanics. But it can't. It's just a hope. It's a faith. That's why I always try and say materialism is a faith. The reason why materialism is a faith is because it is fallacious. It's rashly incoherent. It's done. It's old. It's gone. It is 100% refuted. Materialism is 100% refuted. End of story. Done. End of story. So for materialists to hope that one day materialism will be able to explain things like placebo, consciousness, quantum mechanics, it is literally a faith. Because materialism is 100% rationally refuted. So to believe that something will happen, even though it's completely irrational, it's a faith. You might as well believe, oh, God will do it one day. It's bullshit. So materialism is a faith. It's dead, old, and gone. This world needs to rip it out of its mental repertoire, have a paradigm shift, and move to Hyperianism and idealism. It seems like they're going towards panpsychism. Do you see how they just can't get rid of matter? Materialism says all reality is matter. Panpsychism says all matter is conscious. Hyperianism says there is no matter, there's only mind. You see how they're like, all right, fine, I guess we'll say that there's no, that it's not all matter, but can we just say that all matter is conscious? It's like, just fucking, come on, come the fuck, really, humanity has had enough time to get it. It's not rocket science. It's really not to understand. It seems like this thing that's really difficult to grasp, but when you understand basic logic and reason, it's really not. It's really not. So humanity needs to evolve. It needs to have this paradigm shift, and and do you see, once we do understand that reality is mind, we'll be able to make more advances in science and technology and, a real science, not a materialist science, the Hyperian science of ontological mathematics. We'll be able to understand the mind better, pair that with technology to come up with new ways to heal the body. We'll be able to create an entirely new world, a new political system, a new mathematical system, and do away with mainstream religion. Like, we can have a completely different experience instead of this hellish bullshit that we have now. And we can do it as soon as humanity just wakes the fuck up. And that's what we're here to do, is wake humanity the fuck up. That's what we're here to do. And through logic and reason, through raising them to a higher state of awareness, through raising them to a higher consciousness. So that is the importance here. Now, really important topic today, and some things that I just want to emphasize again, okay? That placebos in general, they're not going to lower your cholesterol or shrink a tumor. Here's a quote. Placebos work on symptoms modulated by the brain, like the perception of pain. So here's a quote by Professor Kapchuk. Placebos may make you feel better, but they've shown to be most effective for conditions like pain management, stress-related, insomnia, and cancer treatment side effects like fatigue and nausea. So they're good for side effects, not usually the major thing itself. So placebos work best when the problem is pain or discomfort. They are not reputed to fight cancer, for example, though they can reduce the discomfort of the disease's side effects alongside other treatments. And side effects can be a significant quality of life issue in themselves. So that's a thing. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because in the future, we will in the future be able to develop innovations with the mind and marrying that with technology to be able to do those sorts of things. But right now, I just want to emphasize that there are a lot of limitations because I care about you and your health. And I want you to know that you should absolutely, continue taking your medicine, continue doing what your doctor tells you, follow all the advice of your doctor and everything like this, because that's very, very important. There's a lot of people out there who just deny medical science and just think, oh, I'm going to believe, or I'm going to pray, or I'm going to use my crystals, or I'm going to use my oils. Please don't do that, okay? Medical science is incredibly important. Please talk to your doctor. Please take your medicine. Please follow medical science. I'm not a doctor. None of this is medical advice. And I want to make that really clear. None of this is medical advice. Always take the advice of your doctor. This video is simply to show you the power and the potential of the mind and give you a better understanding of how it works and what we will be able to do in the future once this world gets its head out of its ass and we can begin to develop technologies, systems, and innovations and programs to be able to maximize potential and evolve technologically, consciously, mentally, as a collective, all across the board. So, always remember that. This is our goal. And where materialist science completely fails on an explanation, and panpsychism kind of gets there, but has its own huge logical problems, Hyperianism shows how it can be done without any of these logical fallacies or inconsistencies. We are the science of the future. Let's get the world there with us, so that not only will we be able to heal ourselves, so that we can heal the fucking planet, because the planet is diseased. The planet is wounded. The planet needs some healing. And again, we're not gonna heal the planet just by thinking about it. Okay? We're gonna heal the planet by going out there, doing hard work, and spreading information, spreading awareness, and raising the consciousness of humanity. Again, not just, oh, we're gonna sit there and meditate and raise the consciousness of humanity. No, that's lazy. Sure, if you want to do that as well, that's fine. That's fine. But also, go out there, do the hard work, spread this information, work on yourself, acquire knowledge, acquire understanding, spread knowledge, spread understanding, spread reason, spread truth, spread all the information that will actually, truly, don't just be passive, be active. I want to give a big shout out to all the supporters on Patreon, especially Timothy, Renaissance Fairy, and Jordy. You guys are awesome. If you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. It's the best way to support my work with all the censorship and deplatforming on Facebook and YouTube. You're going to get access to our weekly secret live streams. We're having one right after this. You get access to a lot of my live stream lecture notes. You get access to our hidden Discord server, The Citadel. You get a lot, and you can support. The link is right over here. Thank you guys very much.